Webinar is now broadcasting. All attendees, excellent. And participants are joining. So I guess we'll give them a few minutes to log on. And we are recording. I think we have 40 to 50 that are registered, so nice number of people this morning.
Good.
Well, for those logged on, good morning. We'll wait a few minutes before we begin. Have a couple minutes, grab some coffee, whatever your beverage of choice is. Holding steady at 25. Give it a minute or two. For those mingling in the hallways, waiting to finish. Good looking group of attendees. All right, so we're holding pretty solid at 26, and we'll give it just about 30 seconds, and we'll go into start mode. All right, let's go ahead. Well, 7 there, we got a few. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Members Assembly virtual version. As you all know, we're in the face of a pandemic that's affecting us all, affecting our sport hard. Last year at this time, we were enjoying nice weather down at Cedarburg at the in-person assembly. And I guess if there's one thing that this pandemic has done is enabled us to leverage technology. Something that I've wanted to do for a long time was put these on virtually and create a library that people could, access after the fact, but also log in from a distance, if they could not make the members assembly. So this is a extremely great asset to us. We have this is the first one of the morning. So this is, I'm very excited about this one actually. And I know my panelists might be laughing at me as I say that I'm very excited to talk about insurance today, but I really am, because this has been a project that we've been working on for at least a year. As our new CEO came on board, Jeff Plush, we let him know that this is something that we should do. And Ron Rossi and Greg Joly and myself and Jeff Plush should really work hard to deliver something that we know is going to benefit not only member clubs in their risk management, also the bottom dollar line, but also the individual member. So I'm excited to kick it off. A brief introduction. So we have on the panel, Greg Joly. I call Greg a great friend. He installed a phone on my desk that's a direct line to him because I call him so much. Greg is Senior Sports Vice President for Loomis LaPann. And then I have another great friend, Randy Brandner, President of the Wausau Curling Club, my home club. We use the insurance program. And on a personal curling note, Randy and I commiserated a little bit this morning because this is the weekend that we would be hosting our Northwoods Supper Club Bonspiel. And of course, that is on hold for this year. So we celebrated with a virtual brandy old-fashioned sweet. I'd like to thank Jenna Martin for co-hosting and coordinating the Q&A today. So with that, actually, one thing before we begin, if you have pencil and paper, I'd like you to write down a couple things that you need to remember and that will trigger as we go on with this discussion. One is not, you need to write these down. One is not slip and fall insurance. One is 6 versus 12. One is, it's not new, but it's now national. And one is, it's not a revenue generator. And one is stringent USOPC guidelines. So if you didn't write those down, that's okay, but you should remember them because as we go through the presentation, you're gonna hit on those key points that we need to make. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Greg Joly.
All right, thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Jenna, you can go to the slides, please. Okay. You see the first slide here. Here's the, we're going to talk about the USA Curling Insurance Overview for the 2020-2021 policy term. Next slide, please, Jenna. A little history about Loomis LaPann, our company. We were established in 1852, which make us, the second oldest insurance broker's house in the United States. We're located in upstate New York, Glens Falls, New York. And we design insurance programs specifically for, high school athletic associations, USOC, USOPC, national governing bodies. And we have a coaches association that we cover with over 150,000 high school coaches. There's various insurance programs that are involved. There are liability products, catastrophic insurance products, participant accident products, directors and officers products, all the gambits regarding, insurance coverages that for sports related activities. Very important to know that we work directly with various insurance underwriters. So there's no middleman. We design the insurance products. We go to the carriers. We explain the risk. We walk them through what coverages that we think they require, and we try to come up with a program that's comprehensive and the service that we provide we think are second to none in the insurance marketplace. Next slide, please, Jenna. Here's a summary of the presentation. Here's what we're going to talk about today. What insurance coverages does USA Curling have? We're going to go over the general liability master policy. We're going to go over the participant accident master policy. We're going to go over how to enroll your clubs and members in the new insurance program. We're going to talk about directors and officers, optional insurance coverage. That's on a per club basis. We're going to go over certificates of insurance. We're going to talk about incident reporting. We're going to go over risk management and what it means, so you guys can keep your sport nice and clean. And then we're going to have question and answers, and we'll share all our contact information. Next slide, please, Jenna. Okay, here's the general liability insurance program. And this is a master policy that provides coverage for all member enrolled clubs and their members. It covers them for bodily injury, personal injury, or property damage claims. And coverage applies while participating as a member in any sponsored, supervised, and sanctioned curling activity. So who is covered again? All USCA members, curling clubs, and USCA members. The policyholder, or the carrier, I should say, is Houston Casualty Company. This is a Tokyo Marine insurance, part of the Tokyo Marine Insurance Group, and it is an A-rated carrier. The policy terms are December 1st, 2020 to December 1st, 2021. The limits of insurance, each occurrence is $2 million. The general aggregate is $5 million. And that aggregate is on a per event basis. So what that means is that we should never exhaust the limits of that policy. If we would have a claim for $5 million at one event, we'd have another $5 million at the next event. So we should never exhaust the limits of this policy. Most policies have a general aggregate, and that general aggregate is on a policy term annual basis. So if, usually it's $2 or $3 million. And if you had a claim on the second day of the policy and it was $3 million, it would exhaust those limits and there'd be no additional limits for that policy term. You'll see personal advertising injury, 2 million, products and completed ops, 2 million, damages to premises rented to you, 300,000. And the medical expense other than participants is $5,000. And what that means is that we can pay if for a slip and fall, if somebody has an incident at one of your clubs, a slip and fall, and they've got medical bills, we can pay up to $5,000 in this policy to pay those medical bills. You'll see they have a sexual abuse limit of $1 million. And the most important thing is you've got participant legal liability of $1 million. So what participant legal liability means is that your club, if you are a dedicated ice rink, you may have a liability policy in place now and under a BOP or a business owner policy, but that liability that you have is probably premise liability only. So it's going to cover you for slips and falls at your club, but it's not going to cover your club should you have an incident on the ice. That is participant legal liability. So if you don't have that coverage and someone gets hurt on the ice and they decide to sue your club, you do not have any coverage at all. So again, this is what this policy provides. This is participant legal liability because it's a sports related insurance policy. So for arena clubs, obviously your landlord or the facility that you're going to lease from is going to be most appreciated that you have that coverage because that could save them, defending a claim on their own policy. So again, this is your general liability coverage, and we'll answer any questions you guys may have at the end of the presentation regarding any of the limits and any of the coverages. Okay, Jenna, next slide, please. Okay, this is your participant accident insurance policy. And this is excess medical insurance for all USA Curling members. And what happens in today's world, it's excess, I'll go back up a bit. It's excess over any primary medical insurance. So for example, if you have a Blue Cross or Blue Shield and you're injured, participating in the sport of curling, your Blue Cross Blue Shield policy will be primary and they pay first. If you do not have primary insurance, then this policy becomes primary if you're injured during the sport of curling. So if you don't have any insurance, again, this becomes primary. Now, also what happens in today's medical world, your Blue Cross Blue Shield policies do not pay 100% any longer. It's usually huge deductibles are in place, or co-pays. Excuse me. So for example, if you have a Blue Cross Blue Shield and that policy is on an 80-20 copay, and you are injured, you tear your ACL up curling one night, and it's a $40,000 ACL injury. And what happens then is the insurance company is only going to pay 80% of that bill. That's all they're going to pay. The 20% you'll be responsible for. So you're going to be $8,000 out of pocket on that type of injury. Well, we can subsidize that out-of-pocket expense under this policy, and we can pay that $8,000 out of pocket. So very important. And what also this policy is very important to have is that when someone's injured and we can pay their medical bills, they tend not to litigate. and that'll keep us out of the courts and keep us claim free. And that in turn will keep our, our rates in place, hopefully over the long term. You'll see that the policyholder is United States Curling Association and its member clubs in good standing. The carrier is National Union Fire Insurance Company. That is an AIG member company, A+ rated. The policy term should be 220 to 221. The accident medical limit expense benefit is $50,000, and that is on a per claim basis. The accidental death benefit is $10,000, and again, that is on a per claim basis. And there's an accident dismemberment benefit of $10,000, and that is on a per claim basis. You'll see the deductible on the policy is $1,000. Now, that deductible can be satisfied by other insurance. So for example, if you have a Blue Cross Blue Shield, all you have to do is accumulate $1,000 in medical bills, and that satisfied this deductible. So as soon as your insurance company pays $1,000 in medical bills, we are on at first dollar. What we have the $1,000 deductible in place for is to protect the policy for someone that does not have any medical insurance. So we need to make sure that they have some skin in the game and not going to get, an x-ray or something that may not be needed just because the insurance is there for them. And we want to make sure that if they have to pay $1,000, that will come out of their own pocket, should they not have any primary medical insurance. Okay, next slide, please, Jenna. Okay, Steve, I'm going to turn this over to you, and you can briefly go over the enrollment procedures for clubs and members.
Sure. Can you hear me, by the way?
I can.
Okay, thanks. I was busy writing some chat questions down. So just a reminder, if you have questions, there's a Q&A option. Just throw those in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. So how to enroll clubs and members. So last year, how this worked is we had about 65 clubs that were covered under the USA curling policy. And truthfully, there's about, well over 100 clubs that were covered under the very same policy nationwide. And how we enrolled last year was clubs submitted their roster to us for insurance purposes and just sent a bill or sent us a check for $12 per curler, and that was basically it. This year it's going to be $6 per curler. I don't know if we've gotten to that point yet, but because we are the NGB, the national governing body of the sport of curling, we're able to go to Greg, who goes to the underwriters and says, hey, this NGB wants to protect their members. What can we do for them? And so by using the law of large numbers, we were able to bring that down from $12 to $6 per curler. And how we'll do that this year is we understand that it's something new. We're going to work with every club individually on just how to do that. Clubs can do it the way they did last year if they want, or we'll work with them on an individual tailored approach if that's what they wish. So with that, I'll turn it back to Greg.
Okay, thanks. I must mention also on both the participant accident policy and the general liability policy, both policies have been meet all of the United States Olympic Committee insurance criteria. So when we underwrite an NGB, the policies have to go to the USOPC, and they take a look at the coverages, they take a look at the limits, they take a look at the endorsements of the policy, and they approve that policy. They improve the carriers, and they improve the ratings of the carriers. So both National Union and HTC have been approved by the United States Olympic Committee. Okay, directors and officers liability. Really important coverages nowadays because of the legal climate we're in. We can't write a master policy for this type of coverage because every club has their own bylaws, their own different boards, and there's no such thing as a master policy for a D&O for D&O coverage, which is directors and officers. Now, directors and officer insurance is designed to protect, your directors and officers, your board members, your committee members. And this is for damages arising from lawful alleging wrongful acts. And what we mean by wrongful acts is that somebody should question your board decisions. If you, for example, if you have a bonds field and you say anybody over 6'5" can't participate in our bonds field, and somebody questions that and said, I'm 6'6" and I want to participate, and you say no, and they say, we're going to sue you. This is the policy that will respond should somebody questions, your board decisions. And of course, many people are reluctant to serve on boards because, if there's no insurance there, they could pay damage out of their own personal assets. So it's very important to take a look at this coverage. It's on a per club basis. We can talk to you, you guys can call us and we can send you out an application. The application has to be completed, and the policies are pretty inexpensive. They probably all run from, $750 to maybe $1,500 on an annual basis. But again, if you have board members that are looking for that type of, make sure that coverage is in place, we'd be more than happy to provide a quotation for you. Okay, next slide, please, Jenna. Purpose of a certificate of insurance. Again, in today's world, especially for arena clubs, they're going to want to know if you have insurance in place. There are two things that are going to happen on a certificate of insurance. The facility is either going to ask you for proof of insurance, or they're going to be asked for additional insured status. Usually that is the case. They're going to want you to name them as an additional insured because they want us to pick up most of their negligence as well on our policy. So if once you sign, when you're signing a contract, and that's another thing, be very careful when you're signing these contracts. Most of these arena clubs look at these contracts and all they see is the fees per hour are the fees per year. They see the hours that they can use the facility, but they've not read any of the indemnification language. And you have to understand when you're signing these contracts and you're signing your name on this, you could be held responsible if some of the insurance requirements that they're asking for are not provided under the United States Curling Association policy. So we'd be more than happy to look at these contracts for you, or you can get a lawyer to look at these contracts, but be very careful before you sign them, because a lot of this language is sort of hidden, and a lot of the things they're asking for, you don't want to give. So again, these facilities are going to ask for proof of insurance, or they're going to ask for additional insurance status. If they don't ask for any of the above, we sure don't want to give them anything, because obviously when we name them as an additional insured, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to pick up, some of their negligence as well. So in the perfect world is our insurance will cover us and their insurance will cover them. But when we give them an additional insured status, is our insurance is going to cover us and our insurance is also going to cover them. But there's no way around that today. And for you guys to use these facilities, that's what they're going to ask for. Okay, next slide, please, Jenna. This is the insurance request form. And this is what you're going to need to complete when you require a certificate of insurance. And you can go online to the website, the USA Curling website, and they'll get this form will be on the website, and you complete the form. The form comes back to our office, excuse me, and we can issue the form per your request. Next slide, please, Jenna. Here is a sample certificate of insurance for or the sample cert. And again, all what they're looking for is they're looking for the name, the insured, which you'll see in the top left. And they're looking for the limits of insurance that the policy provides. And you'll see that's on the right. And of course, they want to be named as additional insured, most likely. And as soon as we provide you with this certificate, that is like their insurance policy for them, and they will keep it in their files and it'll be good on an annual basis. And should there be changes that need to be needed to the cert, halfway through this curling season, we can also make those changes depending if there's new ownership that takes over the venue or so on and so forth. But those can be changed with another request form, not a problem. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, thanks. Incident reporting. Very important that if there is an incident, we need to know about this. And usually what we need is described in detail, who, when, where, or how. Get identification information of the injured person. Talk with eyewitnesses, get their names and contact information, photos if possible. And because what happens today is that in the statutes in each state vary. And if there's an incident tomorrow, we don't necessarily going to hear about a claim, but they could have, in some states, 3 to 5 years to litigate against you. So once that incident report is filed, we can go back to that incident and say, okay, here's a witness. Here's who did this. Here's pictures that were taken. Here's the contact information. And we can go back and understand what took place because, 3 to 5 years is a long time. But those claims, those possible claims could still be open. And they could be even longer. If this is a minor, they could have up to the age of 21 plus 3 to 5 years. So it could be 8, 9 years. So it's important that we have an incident. You understand if there is an incident. And usually what we mean by an incident is somebody is hurt, is seriously hurt, or just slip and fall, or someone's injured, or somebody got hit, or whatever the case may be. We should file that incident because you never know what's going to develop from that incident. Make sure that incident is sent in and we can document it, keep it in our files. And if something rears its ugly head 4 or 5 years down the road, we can go back to that form and figure out who's who and what we have to do. So very important. Next slide, please. What does risk management mean? This is also, we understand you guys know your sport much better than we do, and you're going to do everything possible to make sure your sport is safe. But really, this is so important to make sure that you're assessing the risks, you're identifying risks, you're taking steps to reduce those risks, because in the long run, this is what's going to keep our rates in place. The less claims that we have will keep these rates very competitive. If we have a lot of claims, then all of a sudden our rates are going to go through the roof. It's just the way insurance works. Waivers are very important. Make sure that your participants are signing waivers. There's an adult waiver. There's a waiver for minors. They can be individual waivers. You have learn to curl people. So these learn to curl people, if they're coming into your club, you can have a sign-up sheet. And that sign-up sheet where they can print their name and sign their name, and there's indemnification language at the bottom of that sign-up sheet. They don't have to be individual waivers, but everybody needs to sign a waiver. The waivers aren't guaranteed to eliminate a claim. That's not going to happen. They're not going to say this eliminate claim, but they will help. And every state looks at waivers in a different way. Some courts, some they hold water and some they don't. But we want you to sign to make sure that these people have waivers. Okay. Questions and answers. I think we're at that place now. Steve, do you want to add anything more?
Well, I don't know if now's a good time to just bring in Randy for a quick comment. So Randy is also, by coincidence, a former insurance executive himself from Church Mutual, which is just north of me in Merrill, Wisconsin. So Randy, maybe I'll give you an opportunity to jump in, talk about how Wausau uses the program, and then we'll jump into some questions and answers.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I guess what I would suggest is that no one take the general liability coverage for granted. The program that Greg has put together appears to be very comprehensive. It's something that we've been very satisfied with for the Wausau Curling Club. It's a simple process to get the coverage and to maintain it from year to year. I would just, again, pay attention to your coverage, pay attention to your limits, and take the appropriate risk management steps that Greg has suggested here this morning to protect your facility, to protect your club, and to protect your members.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Good to see you this morning.
All right, thank you.
So Randy brings up a couple of good points, and Greg obviously has a lot of great points, and we have some questions and answers. So we can jump in. One of them is from Matt Behrens. What are the waiver retention guidelines for archival? That maybe Greg might have an answer on.
Yeah, the rule of thumb on that is 7 years. So I haven't seen anything different than that. So what we recommend is 7 years.
And so on that, I assume a digitally signed waiver, we've talked about this over the past year and a half, that works just fine. It's just a matter then it's probably a much easier process than if that's digitally stored, so to speak.
I would agree.
Yeah, okay. So Irvin Mossberg, good point. Keep some blank incident report forms on hand at the club. We make those available to clubs. One of the things I do want to point out is that, so there's two coverages basically. There's one that covers the club, and I don't know if that was, the differentiation was clear, and they get the general liability coverage as a member of the USCA. And in essence, they get that coverage for free as a member of the USCA. And what we want then is the members of that club, as part of membership, to have the participant access coverage of that, which in this case comes to the $6 per curler. So that should clarify one of the questions. So there's a question from Jay Flanders. I believe he's from Upper Valley Woodstock in Vermont or Maine area. And his club apparently doesn't buy insurance through USA currently. There's basically three buckets of people in various stages, clubs in various stages of coverage right now. There's the USA Curling members of about 65 clubs that participated last year. There's a group in the East Coast region that has basically the exact same policy. And then there's a bucket that people and clubs that say, we're covered, we're fine. That particular bucket, we want to work with individually, and we would encourage those particular clubs to reach out to myself and Greg just for a walkthrough of their coverage, an evaluation, to see if you think you're covered, that you actually are. And to the other two buckets, as I said, it's basically the exact same coverage for less money now, $6 per curler. So how we do it this year, like I said, we'll work individually on a club by club basis on how they would prefer to do that. But yeah, so eventually, as we move forward, the big vision is that this will be tied to the individual membership. So a great thing moving forward for our lots of new messages. Am I the only one that sees these messages, I guess? Probably. New technology. Does the $6 per person coverage only cover USCA members? Well, that's part of the membership, so that answer would be yes. What about learn to curl participants, drop-in curls? So nothing changes from the aspect of the coverage. That was all covered in previous years. And all of the club activities, whether they be bonspiels, learn to curls, you know, a small corporate event, a one-on-one session, practice, all of those things are covered in the policy as part of the club's normal activities. So simple answer is yes, those are all covered. What are the costs for the one-time participants? No cost for one-time participant. We know that clubs are the grassroots growth level for our sport. We want to make it as easy as possible. So, like I said, nothing has changed as far as that particular coverage. Learn to curl, covered that. This is there was one. Oh, Jim Pleasant. Does the insurance cover regional organizations? So Jim, I'm assuming, I guess, from a regional standpoint, that's an interesting question, I guess, because clubs are members of the region. So in essence, the club would be covered. Unless you have something more specific from the regional standpoint, as far as maybe an event, maybe you can clarify.
Well, if that region is part of USA Curling, then that region would also be, the region entity would also be afforded coverage.
Okay. Perfect answer.
Okay. And so if they're part of USA Curling and they're doing something on your behalf of USA Curling, then they would be covered under the general liability policy.
Hope that answers your question, Jim. Okay. Retention waiver. At what level should a slip and fall be documented? As far as, so that's from Evan Liu, from mid-south, I believe. I'm assuming you say slip and fall, maybe you can clarify, are you talking about on the ice? Yes, on the ice. So, Greg, you know, at what level, you know, slips and falls
Well,
out?
if it's a slip and fall on the ice that requires a visit to a hospital, a visit to a doctor, that should be definitely documented. If it's somebody slips and falls and they pick themselves back up and everything's fine, they shake it off and away they go and they're curl for another hour. I don't see any, you know, I don't see that to be anything, but it's probably good to report everything and just say afterwards, if somebody slips and falls, how do you feel? Are you all right? Is everything okay? Are you sore? Does your back hurt, or whatever the case may be? But you know, if somebody has to go to the hospital, we need to know about that incident.
Okay.
Not only for liability purposes, but to make sure that if they need the accident insurance, that we can now know about the claim, and if we can send them out claim forms, claim filing instructions, and if they require doctor visits or so on and so forth, we can help them out. Excuse me.
So yeah, I'm going back to the question and answer session and hopping out of the chat because so these are people who reached out with the Q&A portion. So one is, can you clarify the $1,000 deductible for medical? If a person's personal insurance covers all but $8,000, does the USCA policy pay the full $8,000, or would the USCA deductible be applied and it would only cover $7,000?
No, it would cover the full $8,000 out of pocket.
Right.
Because the deductible, what they do is they'll take that, whatever was paid by the insurance company, they'll apply that towards the deductible. So we paid a full 8,000 out of pocket.
Yeah. Okay, a lot of learn to curl questions. I think I addressed those. It's the same coverage. They are covered without extra cost. Does the $6 cost include general liability? So that goes back to the clarification I made that as a member club, the club receives as a member benefit the general liability coverage, and they ensure that their members are covered with the participant accident portion, which is the $6 per curler.
And also, Steve, I'd like to mention that your club is not going to be charged a fee for liability coverage. They're going to get that at no charge. But in addition, your members are also going to be covered with liability. And your members are going to be covered with participant accident. That's why we want your members to join, USA Curling. So we can provide that coverage for them. Now, we don't see a lot of litigation regarding member to member, but who knows? In this legal climate, what could happen if somebody pushes someone and if they fall on the ice or whatever the case may be, and there's litigation involved. If people don't have that liability insurance, I mean, just defense alone could be, in the thousands of dollars. So why not take advantage of this coverage for your members? It's a nice benefit. And so you get the liability and you get the accident coverage as well.
Right, exactly. Brad Whitlock, hi out there in Curl Vegas. Brad, where are incidents reported on the website? So you would report an incident directly to me, and then we would put it on my Greg Joly hotline phone, and within a matter of a few minutes, an hour, we would have your person who had the incident in contact with Loomis and LaPann. So hope that answers that. Yeah, so a lot of, we've covered the zero deductible option, and it's pretty clear that a zero deductible option is the best policy. And that's why we went with a $1,000 deductible, because it protects actually the club and the organization from frivolous claims. Did I speak to that correctly, Greg?
You did. The deductible, if somebody doesn't have, the key to this is people that have no medical insurance. So, it's unfortunate and it's too bad, but if you don't have medical insurance and all you have to pay is $1,000 on a $50,000 claim, that's not a bad deal. And you've paid only basically, $2 for your whatever the rate is, let's say it's $6 combined for that type of insurance. That's not a bad situation. So, and then if somebody has primary insurance, they don't have to worry about the deductible, because that'll be satisfied, as soon as they accumulate $1,000 in medical payments.
And the neat thing about this is we roll into the national offering is that, this will travel with the curler, up to Canada. It'll travel to, if there's summer spieling at a different club. So all additional benefits for sure. Dan Leela from Wisconsin. I believe the Wisconsin statutes, yes, I'm familiar with this too, protects officers and board members of organizations such as curling clubs from being sued for matters such as Greg's example of the guy that was too tall. Randy could probably speak to this even more, being in Wisconsin. But even Wausau, we have D&O coverage. So Randy, maybe you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that even though there may be a state exemption for directors and officers, there could be litigation costs still that would be covered under the D&O. Suit brought against the director individually that might incur some additional legal costs, that even though the liability may be exempt. There still may be that defense costs that would be covered under the D&O policy.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
That's a good point.
It's always good to over-insure, I guess. Be safe rather than sorry. What's the saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think we covered most of the Q&A pretty thoroughly. Jay raised his hand. Jay, why don't you throw your question into the Q&A and we'll see what it is. If I don't see it, we can definitely look to wrap up. I think it's been a good 45-minute discussion. Very excited to offer this out to the member clubs and their curlers. I'd like to thank Greg Joly again for stopping by on a Masters Sunday morning, afternoon, and Randy as well. Thanks again to Jenna Martin for monitoring the technology with me. Without seeing really much new in the Q&A, I think we'll wrap this up. This will be available to see for the indefinite future. The link will survive and people can still register and watch this and learn from it. If you have individual questions afterwards, feel free to give me a call or email stephen.o'keefe@usacurling.org. So for that, I'd like to thank everybody. Enjoy your Sunday. Thank you for coming and enjoying Members Assembly. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.